Okay, public comment. Yes, name and organization.
Yeah, I'm Michael Hughes. I live in Neff. You need to know my political...
No, I think the public would like to know who's speaking, that's all I need.
Oh, yeah.
Probably a proper vendor.
Yeah, that's fine. I wanted to talk about the new DEP citation on us, or request to the town to remove the oil tanks. And before the Board of Finance approves the letter from the First Selectman, I would like you to consider some options or some comments that I have. I did some figuring, okay? Before we rush to that, okay, with all that's happening to this town, with the cost, okay, taxes going up, the town and the state pushing back on us right and left, I think it's time that we push back on the state, okay? The DEP is a bureaucratic bunch, and I think we should meet them halfway. And I recommend that maybe the chairman of the Board of Finance, that would be you, sir, and First Selectman, have a meeting with DEP, along with the state representative, Art Laniers. Okay? And I say to you that we should say to them, we understand we have a problem, and we recognize it. It is a serious problem to remove the oil tanks, but it's going to cost a lot of money. And we don't have continual funds in this town to keep on funding these things. So I'm saying, okay, my suggestion is we will pump them out, which I think is in progress, fill them with oil absorbent materials that's approved, pump them full of that, and say to the state, we're done, we have no more money. When we have a better financial situation in town, we will come back and remove the tanks, okay? And I think we can do that with our own forces, with the Department of Public Works. It's not a big thing. You pump them out, you have a company come pump them out, you fill it with material. And then you say to the state, we met you halfway, we understand, we're not saying we're not going to do it, we just don't have the money now. One thing we left out of the budget is, and I understand why he did, was that the soil contamination. These tanks are 30 years old. I've been in the business all my life. And I guarantee you, as sure as I'm sitting here, is that they're leaking. Tanks don't last forever. They're steel, okay? So the chances of them all leaking is pretty high. So I went and did some calculations. I have copies I can give you guys.
Just in interest of, if, there's public comment, and if you could start to summarize, because we have, I don't know, people might want to speak.
I'm just saying that the cost for remediation of the soil from contamination could cost from $320,000 to $355,000. I know for a fact that the last time I was involved, it cost from $900 to $1,000 per ton of material to be incinerated. The closest incinerator I know was in North Jersey. Okay? You have to have a bill of lading, chain of custody. It's a very legal thing. So I'm saying let's delay this for now, push back on the state, and not go ahead and spend this. But even if we do have to do it, even the part that I was suggesting, we can do it with the Department of Works people. So that's my suggestion, and I would hold off on the First Selectman's request to spend this money right now. So I'll leave you some copies. And I can go over with you later and about how I came up with that and calculated that. But I would like you to take a serious look at that.
Thank you so much.
Okay?
Just public comment. In the interest of time, that was a 5-minute presentation. I don't want, anyone else to exceed that, because it's, we're here to take, brief comments. I understand there's a lot of detail here. We'll take a look at that. And obviously, everybody else is available to talk to at any time that you would like to grab them on the side. Any other comment? Public comment? Thank you. Move on to item review and act on the 2017-18 revised bonding project schedule, which includes fuel tanks and bulkheads, which we refer to here. There's been the action of the Board of Selectmen that forwarded us the two items to move the bonding money around has been brought to our attention that we would need to do this in two resolutions, one for each, and that it would have to go back to the Board of Selectmen to be sent out to town meeting. We have language here that Mary's has available. In this resolution, it has both of them together. And my feelings are is that what we ought to do is read this resolution separately so that we do one at a time, because we can do one at a time, and that's fine. If we do two and they say you can't, then we got a problem. So we should do two resolutions, one for each, rather than do one resolution for two, because there's no restriction against doing two resolutions.
Well, they're not related.
Right, but they have it in the same resolution. So what I'm saying is, I know that we can do two separate resolutions, we may not be able to do it in one resolution. Now, that's just on the merit of the process. So do we want, we can have some discussion before, or we can have a motion to move something? I mean, I want to be kind of fair here, but.
I would like to have a discussion before. This is a suggestion from bond counsel today. This just came in. We haven't had the opportunity to read it. This whole thing troubles me. I'm looking for the best policy for transparency and taxpayer money. I agree with our first selectman that we need to follow a fixed procedure. There have not been procedures in place in this town for years where things get moved and it's not clarified to the public. Her suggestion at the meeting the other day was to table this, not send it to us, and for transparency, create a policy, the Board of Selectmen creating a policy to be able to take money that is not used in a bonding resolution and move it to another project, or do whatever with it, not just have the public come and think they're paying for bridges, sidewalks, roofs at schools, and the fuel farm at the DEP, and then have money changed midstream. It's perfectly fine to change the money, but I just think a policy needs to be set in place. I totally agree with Christine on this, that it just continues this lack of transparency that has been a problem in this town for years. So I would move to table this for a week, have the Board of Selectmen create some language, and then we'll approve it. And by the
You made a
way,
motion to table, is there a second?
I have one more
Well,
comment.
you made a motion, right?
I didn't make a motion, I was making.
Okay, there's no motion.
No. I would like to comment on the gentleman who mentioned the cost of the mediation. I personally was involved with a private home with a fuel tank buried. It was only a 300-gallon tank, and it cost $55,000 to have those soils taken to Jersey. And it's a worry. And the resolution that the Board of Selectmen made was for amount. They did not say not to exceed, not to exceed, which is an important part of the thing. So, anyway, that's just my thought. I think we should start clean and have a policy set and then put the money when the public knows where the money's going and how it's being spent. We just got this 2 weeks ago.
We'll hear from you.
My letter to the Board of Selectmen
Right.
specifically excluded cleanup costs. Because there's no way, I could put $1 million in there, and it's nonsensical because until you figure out what you actually have, And then once you get that, then you're gonna have to declare emergency, because you're gonna have to appropriate, much like anything else. You gotta go through your insurance company, try them first, and do all that. The gentleman's argument that we should wait and leave the tanks in the ground is exactly opposed to we should plan to have to clean up for the tanks. There's steel tanks, statutorily, the Deep's doing their job. They're guided by statutory control, by law. I've dealt with them before on this. They will not let you abandon in place for the very reason he speaks of, because of contamination. The only way you can determine if the soil is contaminated is if you pull the tanks out. So I get the point of not being prepared to treat that or deal with it, but it's gonna be far exceed what you're gonna sit here and talk about tonight. I'd have to put a contingency of $1 million on top of the tank removal.
And I'm not arguing the need for it, I'm arguing the lack of transparency with doing something like this, and having this small group make that decision without a policy.
What it comes to-
I think the transparency occurred when the voters voted for $7.1 million to be allocated to various projects, capital projects within the town. We enumerated within the resolution a number of them. Things change over time. The cost for some may be less, they may be more. That's just the way it is. I think we're totally transparent. That's what we're going to go out and bond, $7.1 million, and the taxpayers know we're going to do that. They've approved that.
Well, I think to add what Doug is saying, I don't know that, I think this, we've already authorized the 7.1 million. What I think this resolution is asking us to do is at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, that specifically these extra costs, the $230,000 for the tank removal and the $62,400, those haven't specifically in the resolution, they weren't specifically called for. So my understanding is what's being asked of us as Board of Finance is that we make motions to approve those expenditures, send them back to the Board of Selectmen, and then have it go to a town meeting and have it be approved there. That's my understanding.
That's
of
exactly
what's
correct.
happening.
But does the public know that some of these projects came in hundreds of thousands of dollars under bid?
I'm sure they would be very upset by that.
No, but
No, I
should
don't.
they know? That's all I'm looking for. I'm just
Yeah.
looking for a cleaner slate. And I agree with you all, but I just, I wish that the instructions of the Board of Selectmen were more strict to us.
Well, I believe in, obviously, I think we should have transparency, and we win everything on a merit. These are projects, they have merit, they need to be done. I agree that it should go to a town meeting, so what we do is I want to make sure there's no problems here. We send them back as two separate resolutions, just in case, rather than one resolution. And then the board acts on it and sends it to the town meeting. That's pretty public. And Kurt still has, you got me on my debut here.
Yes.
I would've put a suit and tie on if I was gonna be the chairman. Look, from my standpoint, I wanna be as transparent as possible. We have, process here, we don't, and by the way, the longer a tank sits in the ground, the more contamination you end up with. That soil, if you get to it, start to find what your problems are, you start to get at it. And like it or not, we own it. We own it. So whatever it is,
Well,
it is.
they're already, but the public voted on bridges, ramp dredging, roofs at schools, sidewalks, repair and construction of the fuel-friendly
Now,
DEP.
I have a copy of the resolution.
That's what they voted on.
This is what people.
I saw it.
And you may, well, some of the newer members may not be paid as much attention at the time. But at the time, I had said that I thought that we ought to specify amounts on each of these. Because in the past, we had moved things between these. I remember the amounts that we didn't spend on bridges, and the amounts that we spent on
McKester Landing, and, you know, that we move stuff around. And I think that that's when we talk about transparency, that people are saying, gee, I thought we agreed with this. I mean, to me, there are two issues tonight. And one of them, I think, is we've got to do something. We can't do nothing. And the question is, how much do we do at this point? And the other one is, how do we pay for it? This is probably the most expedient way to pay for it. But is it the right way in the future? I mean, I'm probably going to be the one to say it when the next resolution of this comes up. I'm going to say, this piece of paper means nothing. Absolutely nothing. They will spend the money any way they want. I expected that Mr. Neff would come back and say, oh, we can move some of this money from the ramp to the bridges, or from the bridges to the roof, or from this to that. That's what I expected, actually. But I did not expect him to come in and say, we're going to move it to something.
Just to the chair. It's not Mr. Neff coming in and doing this. Mr. Neff sat in a meeting with Jack Sherman, the first select woman, the finance director, and said, the issue is, to be honest with you, is you have to fund it whether you do it. You can make a motion tonight to do it out under the designated fund.
Right.
I don't care which way you do it. The point was that we were told very clearly that the undesignated fund balance was at this level. They preferred not to go below that level. Is there a different way we can do it? This is the way. But you're not going to borrow the money until you've got a bunch of projects completed. So if the undesignated fund balance turns out to be $800,000 and you higher than you thought, you can just move that cost to the undesignated fund balance. The point was, it's like everything else. We're told, don't come back with the bulkhead, don't want to see it. So I presented to a group of people who sat there, and this was hashed out, back and forth between bonding council and a meeting with the bonding committee, all different kinds of things. And that was the solution that they recommended to the Board of Finance. You guys can do it. I said at the Board of Finance selected meeting, you can do it under undesignated fund balance, but you need to do something.
This is perfectly valid.
So
Bond
it's
council's
legal.
appropriation here is perfectly valid.
And it's transparent, Kurt, in spite of what you think and what you feel. It's out there in the public, it's on Facebook, it's everywhere in the world.
I'm going to make a motion that we accept bond council's proposal as written.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. On the motion, do you have any problem? What I had said is that there was one resolution.
Wait,
I would rather have it in two resolutions.
you could
It doesn't-
separate one of the
Right.
whereases to two
Okay,
whereases.
that's all I'm saying, all right?
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
But that's your motion, that's it, so. Discussion on the motion.
Am I allowed to discuss? I'm not seated.
Well, that's another, we're gonna have that discussion. Then technically speaking, within the debate of voting yes or no, you're not gonna,
He does have the experience of sitting at the table.
so a lot of people have experience, but you know, the rules are rules, I guess, I agree. Follow,
I
right?
just have a question though, actually, Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Did you present your alternate
Jared,
remediation?
you gotta go, first of all, questions through the chair,
Through the chair.
and I'm not gonna have we're not gonna have a meeting of discussion, so if I can, through the chair, ask, one of us, we can talk about it, but, I'm not, we could ask, we have officials that are working for us, is one thing, but otherwise, I could have 10 people, 15 people out there.
Mr. Chairman, of all due respect, he says that I was nonsensical. I was not nonsensical. It's proven fact that what I told you is the truth. The tanks are leaking, it's our responsibility. It's gonna cost that kind of money.
I can't, listen, I know the tanks are leaking, I know all the stuff, I know Deep is doing that, I know all that, okay?
Well, we can push back.
That's not on the motion. That's on the
I know.
Okay,
Once-
we
once-
have to
I
discuss.
apologize.
So, any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Now, that's two resolutions.
Correct. I'll separate them for us.
Do we need to vote twice?
You're the
There is
parliamentarian?
one more thing on that
Director.
spreadsheet that we need to discuss.
Yes.
That is
On this sheet.
on this one, yes. If you look at, and this is what Kurt was talking about before, we have finished the dredging project. or have completed, it'll come in less than what we indicate there. What happened with the
Item
Carter, if you go to line number 2 on the Carter Hill over the Neff Bridge,
Yeah.
we've had to change design to meet some additional information from the state biologist, from floodplain and a bunch of other issues. So the engineering costs rose $159,700. Just so very quickly, those are all negotiated by the state, DNL, which is the state consultant, DTC, which is the town's consultant, and myself. So this was a 6-month negotiation after GM2 won the RFP. We then proceeded into a 6-month negotiation on the number of hours that they will use to design the bridge. So, as Kurt pointed out, I said I would come back. So, right now, I'm gonna move the 159 to the Carter Hill to bring that up to the contract price of $431,000. And that is 80% reimbursable. And it's reimbursable as we pay it, so when we pay our bill, we'll submit for the reimbursement. So the 431 is the total cost, and then we'll get the reimbursement back from the state. So the estimated grants are a little bit more, I didn't correct that column. But that's what I said I would come back and do and show where money moves from one project to another.
Okay, so 159 from line 10.
It's coming from dredging, from dredging
Carter Hill.
and moving to Carter Hill.
We would have to use the same language of what we just used.
No, because this is just, you have to notify them in line, I just have to come and say it. It's not a transfer.
And then I'd like to make a motion that we add this to our meeting minutes, this document.
We've got a motion to add the transfer,
This appropriation request
Oh, from-
breakdown
you will move from line 10.
for transparency.
Right. So,
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Basically, it takes 2/3, so we have 2/3, right? So it's on the agenda.
The minute, I mean, 5 minutes.
Well, we actually have to vote on it, so I thought you wanted,
My understanding was no, but
you don't have to vote.
It's not, this is what Kirk was talking about in terms of just informing you, being transparent, moving money across the items. But you can vote, I don't,
Well,
Yeah, wait. No,
we just voted to
Well,
have this
here's-
added to our meeting, so
that's a new project added, this is an internal project.
so it's in our minutes as,
Yes, that you're gonna, I don't want.
Okay.
all right.
that's.